This story begins when the sun is barely awake. A faint line of light cuts through the blinds, landing across a quiet, almost motionless room. For a moment, everything seems still frozen somewhere between night and the promise of morning. Then a gentle vibration breaks the silence, a phone alarm, soft but insistent, humming on the bedside table, not harsh, not chaotic, just a reminder that another day has arrived. You've probably met someone like this before, the kind of person who seems unusually calm about their money, their time, their decisions, not because they're rich, not because they've figured it all out, but because they've survived enough chaos to appreciate structure. Because at some point, life taught them that freedom isn't an accident, it's designed. And today, you're going to see what that design looks like up close. The hand that reaches for the phone is steady. A breath is taken, slow and intentional, as if this person knows that the first inhale of the day sets the tone for everything that follows. Our main character, let's call him Daniel, slides out of bed and lets his feet rest on the cool floor. Stretching, blinking, adjusting, he moves with the quiet confidence of someone who doesn't rush the first moments of his day. There's something almost sacred about the way he starts his morning, as if each step has been thought through. Not rigid, not obsessive, just conscious. The coffee maker clicks on. The water begins to heat. And while the machine murmurs, Daniel opens a small notebook on the kitchen counter. The pages are filled with tiny numbers, short notes, the occasional scribbled reminder. It's not a budgeting notebook in the traditional sense. It's more like a personal journal of habits, a record not of money, but of decisions. He writes down 3 small expenses from yesterday: $2.10 morning coffee, $4.50 metro fare, $18.30 dinner with a friend. Nothing dramatic, nothing life-changing. But each number, in Daniel's mind, tells a story, a pattern, a clue. Some people track calories, some track steps. Daniel? He tracks behaviour. Because once upon a time, long before this quiet morning, he lived without looking, without noticing, without understanding why money left his pocket so quickly, and life punished him for that. Not with a single catastrophic event, but with 1,000 tiny cuts, overdraft fees, impulsive purchases, a feeling of drowning even when income seemed okay. That was years ago. Now every morning begins with a small ritual of clarity. As the coffee fills the room with warmth, Daniel takes a sip and lets the bitterness ground him. He scrolls briefly through his bank app, not with anxiety, but with curiosity. He doesn't check the balance to reassure himself. He checks it to stay awake, to stay engaged, to stay in control. Outside, the city is waking up. Cars begin their chorus. Neighbours shuffle down the hallway. Somewhere in the building, someone slams a door. But inside the apartment, everything remains slow, intentional, almost cinematic. Daniel turns toward the window. The sunlight is stronger now, stretching across the kitchen, like an invitation. And this is the moment, right here, where the theme of the entire day quietly emerges. Money isn't the centre of his life, but it shapes the freedom to live it. He knows this deeply, not intellectually, emotionally, because once he didn't have that freedom. He remembers the morning he overdrew his bank account for the first time. The shame he felt when a card declined in front of a friend. The guilt of buying things to feel better, only to feel worse when the bill arrived. Those memories aren't anchors anymore. They're fuel. Gentle reminders of who he used to be and who he refuses to become again. Now each sunrise brings a question. What kind of day am I building? Not surviving, not reacting. Building. He opens his laptop and glances at a few bookmarked sites. Markets, financial news, a long-form article he didn't finish yesterday. But he doesn't dive into them yet. First he listens, really listens to the silence. It's a strange habit, but it's where he finds perspective. Most people chase information before grounding themselves. Daniel does the opposite. He He grounds himself first so he can filter information, not drown in it. When he finally begins reading, he doesn't absorb news like a panicked trader. He approaches it like a craftsman, curious, disciplined, detached from the emotional storms that headlines try to stir. A rise in interest rates, a dip in tech stocks, a startup making noise, whispers of inflation easing. All of it matters, but none of it dictates his life. He checks his watch and realizes it's time to prepare for the day. Clothes laid out, simple and functional. A quick shower. A reminder scribbled on a sticky note near the mirror. Consistency over intensity. Daniel smiles at it. The world tries to convince people that success is about big leaps, bold moves, overnight victories. But he knows the truth. Wealth, real wealth, grows the way mornings do. Slowly, quietly, one ray of light at a time. As he ties his shoes, he glances once more around the apartment. Everything has a place. Nothing feels excessive. Not because he's minimalist, but because he's intentional. The door clicks softly behind him as he steps into the hallway. Another day begins. But this day, like every day in Daniel's world, isn't just lived. It's designed, shaped, and crafted through 1,000 small, thoughtful choices. And we've only seen the first few of them. The elevator doors slide open with a gentle metallic sigh. Daniel steps inside, pressing the button for the ground floor. The soft hum of descent feels like dropping into a different world, from the quiet sanctuary of his apartment to the chaotic, unpredictable rhythm of the city outside. He takes one last sip from his travel mug as the elevator stops. The doors part. Morning air rushes in, cool, alive, buzzing with the sound of life happening too fast. Crowds move like currents, some rushing, some drifting, some looking as though they're being pulled by invisible strings of stress they never quite learn to cut. Daniel blends in, yet somehow he moves differently, with presence, with awareness, as if each step is connected to a larger story he's writing for himself. At the corner, he spots a familiar face, Mrs. Feldman, the elderly neighbour who always walks her tiny terrier at the same time each morning. She waves, he waves back, exchanging a warm smile before continuing on. A few feet away, a man yells into his phone, pacing wildly, desperation leaking through every syllable. "I told you I don't have it yet. I'm trying. I'm trying. It's impossible not to hear, impossible not to feel. Money. It's everywhere, not in the literal sense, but in the emotional echoes bouncing off every person he passes. The stress, the longing, the denial, the fear hidden under fake certainty. People think money is numbers, cold, hard, rational. But out here, in the world Daniel walks through every morning, money is pure emotion. He crosses the street. A sleek new SUV stops inches from the crosswalk. Music blasting, the driver tapping anxiously at the steering wheel. Daniel doesn't know the man, but he knows the look, the tight jaw, the restless fingers. He has seen that expression before in himself, long ago. Trying to look successful, trying to outrun insecurity, trying to quiet a storm by buying something shiny. He continues onward. A block later, his phone buzzes. A message from a college friend, Leo. "Bro, you free tonight? Need to talk?" "Think I messed up again," Daniel sighs gently. Leo was always brilliant, always full of ideas, always chasing something. But money slipped through his fingers like sand. Not because he was irresponsible, but because no one ever taught him how to slow down long enough to understand it. Daniel has been there too. He remembers a time when he lived like that, paycheck to paycheck, but always pretending things were fine. Always thinking the next raise, the next bonus, the next opportunity would fix things. But nothing fixes a lack of awareness. Awareness is the foundation. Everything else is decoration. As he walks into a small cafe to grab a second coffee, this one a treat. He allows himself only on days when he feels grounded. The bell above the door jingles lightly. The smell of pastries fills the air. A young woman in line ahead taps her card nervously on her phone, checking her balance with a hesitant frown. Daniel notices the momentary flash of panic across her face, the kind people usually hide well. He recognizes it instantly. That quick internal calculation. Can I afford this? Should I? Is this stupid? He knows that feeling because he lived it for years. He steps back, giving her space, not wanting to make the moment feel exposed. When it's his turn, he orders with ease. Not because he's wealthy, but because he knows exactly where every dollar is meant to go. There's no guilt his spending is a conversation he already had with himself, not a negotiation he's being forced into. Leaving the cafe, he walks toward the metro station. His steps fall into rhythm with the muffled roar of the trains below. He climbs down the stairs and, like every morning, he takes the seat by the window on the right side of the train. The city blurs into streaks of grey and gold outside. This is the part of the journey where his mind usually drifts not backward, not forward, but inward. He thinks about the moment his financial mindset actually changed. Not the slow build-up, not the years of experimenting with budgets, but the moment. It was a Sunday morning. He was 26. He had just opened an email from his bank. Account overdrafted 40,19, a small number. A devastating feeling. It wasn't the money, it was the realization. How did I let my life get this far away from me? He remembers sinking onto the couch, the weight of it all pressing down on him. The fear, the shame, the helplessness, the quiet whisper of a thought, louder than anything he had felt before. Life doesn't fall apart in big disasters. It falls apart $5 at a time. That day broke him open. But it also built something new, a small spark of responsibility that grew slowly, painfully, into discipline. Back on the train, the memory fades, but its lesson lingers. Even now, years later, he can feel the echoes of that younger version of himself, the one who had no idea what he was doing, but desperately needed change. Daniel watches people around him, a teenager scrolling through flashy ads for sneakers, a man in a suit reading emails with a tension that seems permanent. A mother soothing a crying toddler, worry etched into her tired eyes. He wonders how many of them feel trapped by their finances. How many blame themselves? How many think everyone else has it figured out? If only they knew the truth. Most people aren't bad with money. Most people are just overwhelmed. Most people were never taught the emotional side of personal finance. And that's the part Daniel understands now deeply, intimately. Every dollar carries emotion, and every emotion tells a story. As the train pulls into his stop, he stands, takes a breath, and prepares to step back into the rushing world, carrying a mindset shaped not by wealth, but by clarity. And the day is still only beginning. The metro doors open, releasing Daniel into a flood of footsteps, voices, and the metallic echo of trains coming and going. The transition from calm introspection to the noisy pulse of the financial district is always a shock, but he's grown to appreciate it. The chaos reminds him why discipline matters. He walks up the stairs into the light, the morning sun now fully awake. Glass buildings rise around him like confident giants, reflecting the sky with a kind of arrogant clarity. People rush in and out of revolving doors, coffee cups in hand, phones glued to ears, energy wrapped tightly around anxiety. Daniel enters the lobby of his office building and heads straight for the elevators, slipping into one just as the doors begin to close. A few co-workers greet him with nods. Others are already drowning in emails, swiping urgently through their screens as if trying to solve the world before 9 a.m. The elevator dings on the 14th floor. Daniel steps out, places his bag on his desk and opens his laptop. Instantly, a familiar glow washes over him, the mix of numbers, charts, and news headlines that shape the financial atmosphere of the day. He takes a breath, then he dives in. First stop, overnight market summaries. A steep drop in tech stocks, after earnings disappointment. Crypto volatility spikes again. Interest rate speculation grows stronger after new inflation data. To most people, these headlines are noise-loud, confusing, stress-inducing. To Daniel, they're patterns, weather reports, signals of human psychology masquerading as numbers. He clicks into a deeper analysis and feels a subtle shift in the air around him, the building tension that always comes when markets wobble. It's not fear, it's awareness. He scrolls and then he sees it. The one headline he didn't want to see this morning. Regional bank shares plummet after unexpected losses. His jaw tightens slightly, because one of those banks, the one buried in that article, is where Daniel holds a small but meaningful position. Nothing catastrophic, nothing reckless, but enough to sting if things go bad. He clicks the article, reads every detail, then rereads it. It's bad news, but not fatal, more emotional than fundamental. A temporary hit if you know how to read between the lines. Still, he feels that old familiar pulse in his chest, the echo of a younger self who used to panic at the first sign of red. That version of him believed emotion and money were inseparable. This version knows better. He leans back in his chair, staring at the headline, letting the weight of it settle without letting it control him. It's only natural to feel something: worry, frustration, second-guessing. But maturity is letting the feeling pass without letting it poison your decisions. That's the thing most people don't understand. Being financially minded doesn't mean being emotionless. It means recognizing the emotion and not obeying it. "Morning," a voice says from behind. It's Claire, one of his closest co-workers, holding a cup of tea and already looking slightly overwhelmed. "Have you seen the bank news?" she asks, dropping into the chair across from him. He nods. "Just went through it." She winces. "I swear every time I think the market can't surprise me anymore, it finds a way." "That's the market's job," Daniel says with a small smile. "To remind us we're not in control." She groans. "Well, mission accomplished," he laughs quietly. Claire has always been open with her financial anxiety, and he appreciates her honesty. There's something refreshing about people who don't pretend to be fearless. Fear, after all, is part of the game. "Are you going to sell?" she asks. Daniel glances back at his screen. "No. The fundamentals are intact. The story hasn't changed. Only the emotions have." Claire exhales as if his calmness gives her permission to breathe too. "Wish I could think like that," she mutters. "You can," he replies. "You just need space between the fear and the decision." She raises an eyebrow. "Space?" "Yeah," he says, sipping his coffee. "Feel the emotion, observe it, but don't feed it. That space is where good decisions live." Claire nods slowly, absorbing the idea, a simple concept, but one that takes a lifetime to master. She stands, gives him a grateful smile, and heads back to her desk. The moment she leaves, his phone buzzes again. Another message from Leo. "Bro, my investment is tanking. I think I'm screwed." Classic Leo, reacting before understanding, letting panic dictate every next step. Daniel makes a mental note to call him later, maybe after work. For now, he needs to keep his own mind sharp. He turns back to the market charts, the red candles descending like drops of coloured rain. To a beginner, this looks like disaster. To him, it's part of the rhythm, a dance between expectations and reality, between fear and greed. He opens his notebook, the same one he uses for daily expenses, but also for thoughts, reminders, mental frameworks. On a blank page, he writes, "Markets don't cause fear. They reveal the fear already inside us." It's a truth he's learned through years of mistakes. Fear doesn't come from numbers on a screen. It comes from insecurity, lack of knowledge, lack of preparation. And so Daniel prepares. He checks diversification, reviews his long-term thesis, revisits the fundamentals, confirms no critical data has changed. The stock is down because people are scared, not because the company is broken. He closes the tabs. Crisis avoided. Not by luck, by mindset. He stands and walks to the window. Below, the city moves like an organism. Millions of people, making millions of financial decisions, big and small. Some thoughtful, most emotional. The market is simply the mirror, reflecting all of it back at once. A colleague bumps into him lightly, rushing past with a stack of papers. "Crazy day already," she says. Daniel nods, smiling. "Just another day in the emotional economy." She laughs, hurrying off. Back at his desk, the tension in his chest has faded. The initial surge of worry dissolved into clarity. The morning conflict, external and internal, has passed. But as he prepares to head out for a late morning coffee break, he senses something deeper forming inside him. A realization, a truth that he's known for years but feels especially present today. Money isn't just about earning or investing. It's about staying human in a world that constantly pushes you to react. And the hardest battles are always the silent ones, the ones fought in the space between emotion and action. By the time noon arrives, the morning's tension has faded into a quiet, reflective hum. Daniel steps out of the office building and into the crisp midday air, a welcome contrast to the fluorescent light and screen glare he's been swimming in all morning. The streets are alive. Lunch breaks always bring a certain looseness to the city. People laugh louder, walk slower. Some rush with purpose, others wander without it. A sense of temporary freedom hangs in the air. Daniel heads toward a small deli around the corner. Nothing fancy, but reliable, comfortable, grounding. As he enters, warm smells of bread and roasted vegetables wash over him. A soft jazz track plays in the background, blending with the clinking of utensils and the murmur of conversations. He orders a simple salad and takes a seat near the window, the sunlight casting soft amber patterns across his table. A moment of stillness. He pulls out his notebook and writes the cost of the meal. 11,785. Not because the number matters that much, but because the act of noticing it matters. Across from his table, two co-workers from another company sit down with trays overflowing with food, burgers, fries, sodas, dessert cups. They're laughing, teasing each other, enjoying the moment. And then one of them says something that catches Daniel's attention. "Man, my credit card bill came in yesterday. I swear I'm drowning, but screw it, I need this today." Daniel doesn't judge them. He's been them. He watches as they tap their phones to pay, joking about how future me will handle it. The laughter is real, but beneath it he senses the quiet desperation, the emotional logic that convinces people to spend more when they feel out of control. He knows that feeling far too intimately. As he takes a bite of his salad, a memory surfaces, not the financial disaster that woke him up years ago, but a smaller, subtler moment, one he hasn't thought about in ages. He was 22, standing in front of a store window, staring at a pair of shoes he couldn't afford. Not the first time, not the last. After a long week at work, he convinced himself he deserved them, that buying something beautiful would make the stress disappear. He bought them. And for a few hours he felt lighter, happier, even proud. Then the guilt arrived, then the shame. Then another overdraft fee. It wasn't the money that hurt. It was the realization that he was trading long-term peace for short-term relief. That single pair of shoes taught him more about psychology than any book ever could. He takes a slow sip of water, returning to the present. Across the room, the deli door swings open, and a familiar voice calls out, "Daniel?" He turns to see Sam, an old colleague from a previous job. Sam, with his charming smile and unshakable confidence, the kind of guy who always seemed to be one lucky break away from success or disaster. "Man, it's been ages," Sam says, sliding into the seat across from him without waiting for an invitation. Daniel laughs. "Good to see you too. How have you been?" "Oh, you know," Sam waves a hand, shrugging casually. "Surviving, mostly." His laugh is light but brittle. Daniel waits. Sam has always been talkative. He'll open up eventually. And he does. I bought a new car last month, Sam says, leaning back, way above my budget. But it felt good. Felt like I finally made it. You know what I mean? Daniel nods, though he knows exactly where this is going. And now, Sam continues, the payments are killing me. Insurance too, gas, maintenance. I didn't think it through. He shakes his head. I swear it's like the price of feeling successful was actual financial ruin. Daniel studies him gently, compassion in his eyes. You wanted the feeling, he says quietly, not the car. Sam stares at him, startled as if Daniel just named the truth he's been avoiding. Yeah, he whispers, I guess that's exactly it. Emotions drive money more than logic ever does. That's the hidden truth most people spend their entire lives learning or ignoring. Sam sighs. How do you do it, man? How do you stay so disciplined? Daniel smiles softly. I don't think of it as discipline. More like respect. Respect for myself, for my future, for the version of me who has to deal with the consequences of my choices. Sam falls silent, absorbing the words. After a moment, he stands, claps Daniel on the shoulder, and forces a smile. You always had your head on straight. I need some of that energy. He leaves, and just like that, the deli feels quieter again. Daniel watches him go, feeling a familiar ache, the ache of seeing people he cares about suffer, not because they're reckless, but because no one ever taught them how money and emotion intertwine. He finishes his lunch slowly, savouring the calm. Then he reaches for his notebook again. On a blank page, he writes, most financial pain isn't caused by lack of money, but by the choices we make when we feel overwhelmed. The words sit there on the page, raw and honest. He closes the notebook gently. As he steps back onto the street, he feels the city pressing against him. Again, the noise, the movement, the energy. But inside, he feels steady, grounded, aware. The rest of the world may be ruled by impulse. But Daniel has learned to build a pause between want and action. That pause is where clarity lives. And today, like every day, that pause is his greatest asset. The afternoon light filters through the office windows in long, soft beams, the kind that make everything look calmer than it really is. Daniel sits back at his desk, feeling refreshed from lunch and mentally steadier than he expected after the morning's turbulence. He opens his laptop again, half expecting more bad news, more volatility, more emotional storms from the markets. But instead, something unexpected catches his eye. His position in the troubled regional bank, the one that took a heavy hit this morning, is bouncing back. Not dramatically, not triumphantly, but steadily. A slow green climb, not driven by hype, but by logic returning to the market after its emotional detour. A small smile tugs at the corner of his mouth, not because he's making money, but because his patience is being rewarded. This is the quiet part of the financial journey most people never see. The small wins that come from the moments between decisions. The wins that show up because you didn't panic, because you let your logic breathe, because you trusted yourself enough not to react impulsively. He watches the chart for a few seconds, feeling the calm settle deeper inside him. Then his colleague Claire walks by, noticing the hint of satisfaction on his face. Good news, she asks, holding a steaming mug of tea. Daniel turns the laptop slightly in her direction. She sees the recovery and her eyebrows lift. You were right, she says softly. It was an emotional dip. Most dips are, Daniel replies. Markets move like people do. They overreact, then they correct. Claire leans on the edge of his desk. How do you stay so calm, though? Seriously, he thinks for a moment before answering. I don't try to predict the market, he says. I try to understand myself. She blinks, almost surprised. That's weirdly profound for a Monday, she says with a laugh. Daniel chuckles. Think about it. Everyone talks about money as if it's math. But math doesn't cause panic. Math doesn't cause greed. Math doesn't cause bad decisions. People do. Claire sips her tea slowly. digesting his words. So the real investment is emotional. In a way, Daniel says, financial growth is a reflection of emotional maturity. Most people don't need more money. They need more awareness. She nods, then sighs. Wish they taught this stuff in school. Yeah, Daniel replies softly. It would save a lot of people, a lot of pain. She gives him a grateful smile and walks back to her desk, and Daniel senses something meaningful. In that moment, the ripple effect of clarity, how one person, thinking calmly, can help someone else feel less alone in their stress. The afternoon unfolds with a steady rhythm, a few emails, a short meeting, some spreadsheets, nothing dramatic. But behind everything Daniel does is a quiet sense of intention, a theme running through his day like a steady bass line in a song. Around 3:00 p.m, he steps out of the office for a short break. The air is cooler now, the sun dipping slightly lower in the sky. He walks to a small bench outside, sits down, and lets the world move around him. A group of interns passes by, laughing about something on someone's Instagram story. A delivery driver unloads boxes while humming to himself. A street musician sets up a saxophone near the corner, warming up with slow, mellow notes. Daniel's phone buzzes. Another message from Leo. Bro, I think I need your help tonight. It's bad, really bad. Daniel exhales, not annoyed, not burdened, just empathetic. He knows what it's like to feel really bad financially. To feel like you're drowning and no one can hear you. He types back, I'm here. Call me after 7. As he pockets his phone, a voice interrupts his thoughts. Hey, Daniel. He looks up. It's Rachel from the accounting department. Bright. Cheerful, huh? Always curious. She sits beside him without asking permission, like a friend who knows she's welcome. I've been wanting to ask you something, she says. Why do you record every expense manually? Isn't that exhausting? Daniel laughs softly. He's heard this question 100 times. It's not about the money, he says. It's about staying awake. She tilts her head. Awake? Yeah, he replies. Most people sleepwalk through their spending. They buy things they don't notice, with money they don't think about, for reasons they don't understand. Recording expenses isn't about control, it's about awareness. If you stay aware of small choices, the big ones take care of themselves. Rachel sits back impressed. You make it sound almost spiritual. In a way it is, he says. Awareness is a form of self-respect. The words seem to land somewhere deep inside her. She nods slowly, watching the street in front of them, absorbing the meaning. A moment of quiet passes between them, the kind of silence that feels full, not empty. The saxophone player begins a soft melody, warm, smooth, rising like a late afternoon breeze. Rachel stands and smiles. Thanks, Daniel. You always give me something to think about. He watches her walk away, grateful for the simplicity of the moment. Because if the morning was about conflict market swings, emotional triggers, unexpected dips, then the afternoon is about clarity, about seeing the world a little more sharply, about understanding that financial peace isn't something you stumble into, it's something you cultivate, breath by breath. As he heads back inside, Daniel feels the quiet strength of a small victory. Not the stock recovery, not the calm conversations, but the internal recognition. He's not who he used to be. He's becoming someone steadier, someone intentional, someone free. And the day still has one final act to unfold, one that will bring everything full circle. The sun sinks low, stretching long shadows across the city as Daniel steps out of the office building. The world feels softer now, quieter, as if the universe itself is exhaling after a long, tense day. He walks slowly toward the station, taking in the amber glow reflecting off buildings, the distant hum of traffic, the way people's faces relax as they finally detach from work. Evening has a strange kind of honesty to it. In the morning, everyone is pretending to be who they want to be. At night, people simply are who they are. Daniel passes a small bakery closing for the day. The smell of warm bread escapes as the door swings shut. A father lifts his daughter onto his shoulders. A couple argues gently over dinner plans. Life unfolds in tiny, beautiful fragments. And through it all, Daniel feels a quiet steadiness inside him, built not from perfection, but from presence. At the station, he boards the train and finds his usual evening seat. The city lights blur outside the window as the train glides forward. He inhales deeply and lets the day settle around him like a heavy but comfortable blanket. He thinks about the morning headlines, the fleeting worry, the conversation with Claire, Sam's regret at lunchtime, Rachel's quiet revelation, Leo's desperate messages. Each moment, each emotion, each small choice weaving into a larger tapestry, the story of a financially minded person navigating a world that rarely slows down long enough to think. His phone buzzes. It's Leo. He answers immediately. "Hey," Daniel says gently. Leo's voice is tense, cracking around the edges. "Man, I did something stupid." Daniel listens as Leo explains the risky investment, the panic sell, the loss, the fear of telling his girlfriend, the shame of repeating old mistakes. A spiral Daniel remembers all too vividly. When Leo finally runs out of words, Daniel waits a beat before responding. "You're not alone," he says softly. "You just reacted to fear. It happens to everyone." "But I screwed up," Leo insists. Again. "Then let's understand why," Daniel replies. "The money is secondary. The mindset is the real issue. There's silence on the other end, the kind that signals recognition, not resistance." "You don't need to be perfect," Daniel continues. "You just need to be aware. Fear makes people rush. Awareness makes people pause." Leo breathes heavily, somewhere between tears and relief. "How do you stay so calm about this stuff?" Daniel looks out the window, watching reflections of strangers' faces blur by. "Because I learned the hard way," he says. "And because I decided I never wanted to live in reaction mode again." He helps Leo map out a simple plan, nothing overwhelming, just enough to stop the bleeding and regain clarity. When they finally hang up, Leo sounds lighter, steadier, as if the world feels a little less impossible. Daniel puts his phone away and leans back in his seat. The train slows as it approaches his stop. He steps onto the platform and heads home. The evening air cooler now, carrying the scent of rain from somewhere far away. As he walks up the familiar steps to his apartment building, he feels the full arc of the day settling into him, the challenges, the clarity, the tiny victories, the emotional weight of other people's struggles, and the simple truth woven through all of it. Financial peace isn't something loud or dramatic. It's something quiet, something deliberate, something built slowly in the small moments. Inside his apartment, the lights are dim, just as he likes them at night. He sets his bag down, takes off his shoes, and sits at the small table where his morning began. The notebook lies open, waiting for him. He writes down 3 final lines for the day. "Today, I made choices. Today, I stayed aware. Today, I built freedom." He closes the notebook gently, almost ceremonially. Then he stands, walks to the window, and pulls the blinds open. The city glows in the distance, headlights like fireflies drifting through the night, skyscrapers like quiet guardians watching over the restless world below. This view always brings him back to the moment years ago when everything changed. The overdraft email, the shame, the fear, the vow he made to himself on that lonely couch. "Never again will I sleepwalk through my life." Tonight, he feels the power of that promise. He pours a glass of water, takes a slow sip, and lets the quiet fill the room. And here in this soft, reflective darkness, the story returns to where it began. This story begins when someone decides that freedom is worth the discipline. When someone realizes that money isn't the center of life, but it shapes the space in which life can unfold. When someone wakes up literally and metaphorically and chooses awareness over impulse. You've probably met someone like this before. Maybe they seemed calm. Maybe they seemed disciplined. Maybe they seemed lucky. But beneath that calm is a long history of fear. Beneath that discipline is a lifetime of small choices. And beneath that luck is clarity earned, not given. Daniel stands quietly at the window, soaking in the city's glow, feeling grateful, not for what he has, but for who he's becoming. He knows tomorrow will bring new challenges, new temptations, new emotional storms disguised as financial decisions. But he also knows this: freedom isn't built in leaps. It's built in the small, quiet moments when no one is watching and every decision matters. As he turns off the lights and prepares for bed, one final line lingers in his mind, a thought that feels like both an ending and a beginning. In the end, the richest moments aren't bought, they're built. And with that, the day closes. A simple day, a financially conscious day. A day designed, not endured. Tomorrow the story begins again.